Hello again, Saints. Pastor Dave here with your Lenten devotional for all the Saints. And I'm using a devotional throughout Lent that is by Jill Duffield. It's really cool. It's called Lent in Plain Sight. And she uses a bunch of different everyday objects as sort of focal points as we go through this journey, these 40 days of Lent, and helps us call our attention back to God, back to Jesus, and the journey that He is making throughout this season. So this first week, it is the cross. The cross is the image that we're going to look at, and I imagine that you have a cross jewelry, necklace, some sort of clothing with cross images on it, or artwork somewhere in your house. I think it's an image that you see often. But as we think about the cross, I want to start with the reading from Mark chapter 8, verses 31 through 35. Then Jesus began to teach them that it was necessary for the Son of Man to suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and scribes, to be killed and rise after 3 days. He spoke openly about this. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning around and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are not thinking about God's concerns, but human concerns." Then calling the crowd along with his disciples, he said to them, "If anyone wants to follow after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life because of me and the gospel will save it." You know, friends, during Lent, the cross is a very obvious image for us. It is the direction of Jesus' Lenten journey. He knew that he was heading toward the cross, and what that cross meant for him was pain and suffering. It was a Roman political tool. It was used for punishment. It was used to make an example of people who had committed treason against the empire. It was something that you received as a punishment, and it was very, very difficult to bear. Now, we don't see the cross in the same way, most of us these days. We don't look at the cross and think of a tool for punishment. We think of our faith. We think of our Savior. And that's good, it can be both. But I think during Lent, it is especially helpful for us to consider the suffering of the cross, the sacrifice of the cross. What is given up by Jesus when he goes to the cross? One of the things he gives up is his power, his authority. God in the flesh didn't have to submit to the cross. He didn't have to allow human beings to put him on that cross and murder him. But he chose to do that. One of the things he endured, willingly endured, was the pain, the shame of it. Was the penalty, the price for our sin. And so as we think about the cross and what it means to us during Lent, what it means for us to take up our cross and follow him, maybe we should think about the things that we ought to lay aside like Jesus did in order to bear the cross. Where do we have power? Where do we have influence? Where do we have safety and security? And what would it look like to lay that aside in order to combat the effects of sin in the world? What would we have to give up? What would we have to sacrifice? I think sometimes we have relationships where we feel safe, where we feel comfortable, where we feel like we're not challenging anyone and they're not challenging us. But maybe we should be willing to accept a little bit of challenge in order to push back against sin in our lives and in our world. One of the other things he says is you have to deny yourself to take up your cross. Where have you ever denied yourself as an expression of your faith in Jesus? That's something we might do naturally during the season of Lent. A lot of people give up something that they enjoy, whether it's a type of food or an activity, or even setting aside a certain period of time to be used more deliberately. There are ways that we give up our regular practices, deny ourselves during Lent. Are you doing that this year? Have you done it in the past? How might you deny your own desires, your own self, as a way of serving Christ? Saints, the cross is difficult to carry. It hurts. It's heavy. It has an emotional weight to it as well, because it takes us to a place that we might not want to go. Jesus did not want to go to his death, but he chose to sacrifice for us. As we consider the cross this Lent, let's think about the sacrifices that we could make in order to draw closer to him. That is your devotional for this week, saints. Hope it's helpful. Hope it gives you something to think about. And I pray for you as you follow Jesus on this journey. Take care. God bless you. I'll see you again soon.